Well, listeners, I'm back. Welcome to 108.3, the broadcast between two worlds. I'm still working on a name for it. If anyone comes up with something, they're free to let me know. That device I set up after my first broadcast, recording transmissions I received on the signal, has provided me with some material to begin with, so I'll go with that. Solomon asks, how are you broadcasting across such a large area? I'm in New Mexico, but Philip in West Virginia is also hearing it. Honestly, I don't know. This is the first I've directly heard or thought of it, but thinking back to our last show and Philip, that does seem odd. The station I'm working in is centered in New England, after all, and normally radio transmissions can't reach such distances. Then again, I am sending this radio signal from one dimension to another, so I'm not too surprised by any strange happenings. Thanks for your question, though I'm sorry to say I don't really have much of an answer. Our next question comes from Trevor, who asks, who or what are your leaders and masters that you've talked about on the show? Who are the ones that are challenging them for control? A good question, Trevor, but there's a reason I do not call them by their names. They would not allow us to, even if we knew them, and when facing the terrible might that they wield, there's reason enough not to break their rules. They're what triggered the splitting of our two worlds. The only knowledge you probably have of them is in certain pieces of your fiction. You cannot imagine how lucky you are to have it be that only. Fiction. There's a degree of separation between the world of fiction and the person reading it. Some amount of incredulity and muting of imagination that shields their minds from what is happening. We don't have that. We live in this wretched world from day to day, never being certain if we'll see the next. Well, those are my answers for now. A song, something to lighten the mood and let me out of this world. For just a few minutes at least. After that, we may have a live caller. I can hope. This is The Blossoms on the Bough by Freddy Martin.
The spring under blossoming trees, a song of romance seemed to dance on the breeze. Who saw him kiss her and whisper a vow? The blossoms, pretty blossoms on the bough, left her a dream and a tear in her eye. A kiss on her lips to remember him by. And who said forget him, but didn't say how? The blossoms, pretty blossoms on the bough. Oh, sometimes words may be spoken that later prove untrue. And sometimes a promise is broken, as hearts are broken too. A year has gone by and it's springtime again. She waits all alone and she sighs now and then. And who knows her story and weeps with her now? The blossoms, pretty blossoms on the bough. it's springtime again. She waits all alone and she sighs now and then. And who knows her story and weeps with her now? The blossoms, pretty blossoms on the bough.
Listeners, I'll admit that one reason I started this was selfish. I wish to have some small comfort in hearing from others who didn't live in the hell that I and everyone else in my world do. I wish to busy myself with this project and thus take other things off my mind. This broadcast, of course, serves as a conduit of information between our two worlds, but the reason I specifically wished to take up the call to do it was merely to forget my troubles for short periods. But playing music and receiving no calls has brought me back to reality. The stark reality of destruction and loneliness and those things ruling our every movement from where they lie unseen in space, the air, or perhaps within our very bodies. Forgive me for dishonoring you, masters. Sarath Yal Matan, Nun Volon Tayo, Sarath. I apologize. I'm running a radio show. I cannot speak out of bias against our beneficent leaders. But during these times of hearing my own voice, it sinks into me how regrettable our situation is. I do not know if I can go on. I may end the show now. I may never broadcast it again. I may... Listeners, we have a caller. Where are you calling from and what's your name?
Like, I'm an engineer and research scientist, so, that's the first question that comes to my mind. Also, can I say, it's really fascinating that you and your world exist. I wish I could study the relationships the two universes share.
Thank you. It is indeed very interesting. I'm surprised that your scientist didn't discover us first, actually. I've always pictured yours to be a far more ideal and prospering world. We're still rebuilding our own. 79 years ago, they came and brought their cataclysmic effects to Earth, and we're still rebuilding. It's been estimated that 90% of people died then. You can imagine the detriment that brought upon society. Somehow, though, we managed to keep going through the hardest part of it right at the beginning, until we began to repopulate and regrow some semblance of organization. Though now it was not based on democracy, monarchy, relationships, and connections. It was held together by mutual fear and dread of those who had taken over. So I guess that's what our civilization is like in a nutshell. Technology? We have cars, obviously, as they already existed before our world split. They're not particularly common, though, and are incredibly expensive when you can find them. Computers have existed for a little over 30 years, though they also aren't very common. They're mostly only used by researchers, scientists, and mathematicians. Does that answer your questions?
Oh yeah, thanks. Fascinating to hear about all of this. I'm sorry, by the way, for the predicament you're in. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we all are. Thanks for calling in. Well, listeners, I suppose it's time for another song. Opposite side of the record, Timbales by Freddy Martin. I must thank the few people who have contacted me from the very bottom of my heart. You cannot imagine the relief it lends me to see that I have a caller. It's nearly enough to make up for the predicament I share with millions of others. We have been let know, quite explicitly, that should the unnamed ones triumph over our current rulers and take control of our world, our burden will not ease in the slightest. In fact, it will increase. Therefore, we are forced to hope, and I use that word in the loosest possible way, that our owners remain and continue to rule us in the way they have, the gracious, in comparison to the others, way they have. But even having this one thing to hope for lends us no true hope, just as you would prefer to be thrown off a cliff rather than be tortured to death. But it is what we must put our trust in for now. They do not lie to us. Until next time, listeners.
This show is written, narrated, and produced by Arthur Walterson. You can read other stuff he writes at arthurwalterson.wordpress.com. You can also check out the website for this show at 108point3.wordpress.com for updates and information. Follow us on YouTube and the show's website to get the newest episodes. Background music for the show is created by Eddie Palmer of The Fucked Up Beat and Studio Noir. Check out his music at thefuckedupbeat.bandcamp.com.